Dobra, i zaczynamy. Jakaś...
Elena Pierce?
No chyba Elena Pierce.
Czekaj, ja znam to imię.
No i mamy devów. Techlandu.
They didn't. These are the talented people.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. As you heard from the God voice that just blessed us all, I am Alana Pierce. But I am here with...
Chris Avelon, writer on Dying Light 2.
Chris Avelon.
O
proszę. O, Smektała, właśnie, tak się pan nazywa.
Polaczek, dzień dobry.
Cześć, pozdrawiamy.
You guys excited?
Ja nawet nie wiedziałem jak Chris Avelon wygląda, ale tak wygląda Chris Avelon. To będzie może coś o historii.
We're excited about it too.
You paid them to do that, come on.
Checks
Okay,
in the
so
mail.
for anyone who isn't familiar with Dying Light, how would you explain the franchise as a whole? What's Dying Light all about?
Well, so Dying Light is parkour, which allows you to traverse through the environment with great ease. Brutal FPP, very immersive, very visceral, very in-your-face combat. Day and night cycle that changes the rules of gameplay. And with Dying Light 2, we are introducing a new element to the game, the narrative sandbox. Your ability to make choices that impact the narrative, but also the city, the sandbox space of your game as well.
I actually think that's one of the parts of Dying Light 2 that I'm most excited about, is the idea that every decision that you make will physically change the world and how it looks. How complicated is that, and how do you QA test for that?
Oh, that's you should ask our QA testers. They basically hate us for it. And of course, the problem is that there are so many combinations. It's kind of hard to really guess and measure all of them. But the thing is that as you play the game, first you follow the narrative and you make choices through the narrative. So this is the highest level of your choices that impact the city. And this is actually the biggest because, for example, you can reveal or destroy whole locations. You can kill important NPCs, save important NPCs. You can uncover new types of zombies and unleash them to the world. So that's one level. Then you start to interacting with, also before then, there is also one thing in between, is that as you play missions, you also make decisions during those missions. And those decisions change how the mission play themselves. So this can be a stealth segment, or maybe not. Maybe you go all out and then suddenly...
Boję grać z Bartkiem w koopie, bym wolał SAF.
Właśnie, no chyba ja zacznę grać tego. Być może się możecie niedługo spodziewać na kanale z Bartko jedynki Dying Lighta.
Those are also things that can change the narrative or the city to some extent. So, for example, if you play with a specific faction, they will start installing line bridges or zip lines or rope escalators that basically take you to the rooftop in a second. So, a lot of different decisions on a lot of different layers. So it really is complicated.
I don't mean to call you out here, but developers for a very long time have been telling us that our choices would affect the gameplay, and sometimes it's not quite true.
O, dobra, widzę pani z bezpośrednia.
I've seen gameplay of how the city changes,
Thank
but
you.
for people who haven't seen it, can you give us a really specific example of one thing that you would do that would dramatically change something versus someone else's playthrough?
So one thing that we are showing here at E3 is the fact that you make a decision to, I'm not sure if I can spoil it, but basically what you can do is...
Do it.
You can, so one thing you can do is basically you can uncover a new open world region for you to explore. And this is really like a huge area, which if you do it right, then you get quests that are aligned with that area. You get a new enemy that's inside that area. But if you don't do it, then this is gone. You don't see it. If you finish the game,
No to nieźle, jeżeli takie rzeczy będą robić, to...
Fajnie.
allows you to replay the game a lot.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. What was the decision-making process behind making everything different? What was the inspiration for that?
Well, basically all types of zombie fiction, all types of open world games, those are the things that inspire us. And also on the narrative side, those are the real life problems of today, because there's one thing actually that's very important to Dying Light, is that as you play the game, you make decisions, and these decisions allow you to choose between more selfish take on everything or more collective way of thinking. And I think that's one of the core themes of the game, and this is inspiration for us. If we see something in the world that plays that balance between selfish needs and collective needs, then those are the things that we introduce to the game.
So obviously I'm a little bit obsessed with this one point, but I'm going to keep asking about it because I think it's very interesting.
Okay.
Basically, if I'm playing through this game and I get a certain ending and someone else is I don't know how to phrase it, but basically, is everything going to sort of look the same? Like, if the narrative for everyone will be in a similar direction, just with different pieces? Or are we going to have completely different endings and completely different characters?
I'd say that's a big no. Yeah, because I think the point that you're getting to is that when you feel like your choices don't really end up in a different world or a different set of circumstances.
Is it a different colored explosion, for example?
Yeah, like, because you're like, well, yeah, and then you don't really have any player agency whatsoever, and then you're like, well, I don't feel like this character is actually making a difference in the world. One of the things I like about Dying Light 2 is. So a lot of my history is with role-playing games and doing reactivity with like NPCs you meet and humans in the world, of which Dying Light 2 has quite a number since Civilization sort of crawling its way back. But also doing the environmental reactivity and seeing that being done on a scale is something that I rarely see. And the idea that the new maps and new creatures, that's a significant change in gameplay
I don't think
elements.
I have played anything where I've seen that.
Neither have I. Most open world RPGs I've done, it's mostly the NPC reactivity. To see the environment change is very difficult to do, and the fact you made a commitment to doing it was one of the cool things about this project.
Yeah, that's the thing that made me very, very excited about the game, and I say that as someone who loved the first game, so it looks awesome. And leading into that point, I know a lot of people played the original Dying Light, and I was looking at it the other day.
Szkoda, że ta odpowiedź była taka wymijająca na to pytanie, czy to będą actual wybory, jak na przykład w Detroit, czy to będą wybory jak w grach od Telltale.
For people who actually start them and then finish them, it's around 13%. So not many people actually finish the video games that they play. 50% is crazy high. What do you think it was about Dying Light that did that?
To be honest, I think it's gameplay. This is just basically a game that you pick up, you understand quite quickly how to play it, and you really get a sense of like a kick out of every move, because when you jump, this is really a cool jump. If you grab a ledge and you climb on something, you really feel like this gives you freedom. If you hit something, you really hit hard. So I think that's why that's the reason why people keep playing and playing and playing the game for so many hours. And we have also some other data that I can share right now. We have a guy that have played the game for, I think, 4,500 hours. Whoa. So this is really like a lifetime.
Yeah, but
this is gameplay. Basically, we were always at Techlandu. Maybe I should be more modest, but this is what worked to me.
4,5 tysiąca?
4,5 tysiąca
O
godzin.
ja pierdolę!
Ludzie tyle mają w CS-a,
Chryste Jezusie.
a nie w Dying Lighta.
Boże.
So how much has gameplay changed when it
Nie
comes to
Polak.
Dying Light 2 versus the first
Pewnie
game?
tak.
So we have Dying Light is a game that's built on 3 gameplay pillars. It's, as I said, parkour, melee, brutal combat, melee FPP combat, and day and night cycle. So we have taken those 3 elements and basically rebooted each one of them. We have the Dying Light 2 works on a new engine, C engine, so that was one of the reasons why we had to start some things from scratch. But we also wanted to improve a lot of things. So for example, the parkour algorithm, which basically analyzes the environment in front of you and understands where are the ledges you can grab. This is something we have written from scratch. We started anew, of course, with the experiences, with the knowledge we had from the first game. So now it allows you to do way more. So for example, you see a door and there's a small opening on top of the door. So now this is a place where you can, through which you can
It's just
squeeze.
very loud. You just drank from
Sorry.
Yes, so now that's an opening through which you can slide. Openings in walls. Also, we were able to introduce dynamic elements of the environment. So, for example, you start running to the rooftop and suddenly it all starts falling down. The platforms are breaking. There are things that keep moving as you parkour. So, a lot of improvements on that side. Also, on the combat side, we wanted to introduce more tactics to the game. So, and it's also. And what helps us with that is the introduction of our bigger focus on human enemies. Zombies are, you could say they are stupid because they just want to get you. So there's not that much of a tactic when you fight them. You just want to survive. But with humans, they behave like humans, and they think, they use different tactics, they use different attacks, they keep moving on the battlefield, they use different gadgets. So this is another improvement on the first game where you really have to think on top of you being actually quite skillful on the controller. So those are the types of improvements that we have made to the gameplay. And of course, as I said, the biggest new thing is the narrative sandbox, choices and consequences. Yeah. You shape-shifting, city-shifting abilities.
To talk about parkour specifically, a lot of games have tried to do it, and I feel like Dying Light, even the first one, did it incredibly well. It feels so fluid. You feel like you can just run and you keep that momentum for such a long time. Did you consult with people who actually do parkour to make that work?
So the first game, for the first game...
Ze mną się nie kontaktowali.
He's the most known parkour guy in the world, David Bell, and he really helped us with nailing that feeling.
No, David Bell, tak jakby ktoś nie wiedział, to jest ten, kto wymyślił jakby sport parkour, bo się uważa za ojca.
He looked at all of our motion captures. He also took part in some of the motion captures. So I think those are the things that allowed us to make the parkour as immersive as it is.
How do you mocap that?
You need a huge mocap room, and that's
Is it literally just people running and
Yes,
jumping on
exactly.
things?
It's just Tymon, just running.
Kurwa, a ja tak szczerze, chciałbym wziąć udział kiedyś w sekcji mockupowej, szczególnie do parkouru, to było zajebiste.
Słuchaj, na przykład tak jak robił filmy Marvela, tam mają na green screenie na linkach są, nie? I to wypierdalają.
Ja w ogóle, ja bym chciał kiedyś po prostu spróbować mockupu zagrać, to było świetne.
To go back to combat, then I feel like again in the first game it was all really satisfying. I mean, does it get to a point where when you're making a sequel, when the first game is received really well and everything feels really polished, that there's any difficulty being like, well, how do we fix this? How do we make it even better?
Yes, it is difficult, but I think we found just to give players more. So when we worked on the first game, we also had a lot of ideas of things we would like to introduce. Things like, for example, even small tweaks, like if you do a dodge in a perfect moment, then the game slows down for a bit so you can hit the next attack with really precisely. So things like that. Also new gameplay tools. So for example, in the demo that we have for this year's E3, we introduced a weapon named Scorpio, which is a ranged weapon which basically one-shots enemies. But if you want, you can like make a switch and start using this as a two-handed mace, which is very devastating. So there are a lot of ideas, cool ideas, crazy ideas that we didn't have time or we thought maybe would derail from the experience, maybe would not allow us to focus on the core of the core aspects. So we have added those things now in DL2. And also, when we started playing the game, we came up with a lot of new ideas. So
Yeah.
plenty of stuff for the players to enjoy.
Yay! We like that. We've already seen a lot of enemy varieties. There are a lot of weapon variety as well.
Yes. So again, this is melee-based. This is melee-based game, I would say. This is melee-based combat. So it's axes, it's hatchets, it's machetes, it's baseball bats, it's maces, it's things like that. But the cool thing is that you can modify all of them. And in the first game, we had a lot of blueprints. But when you really look at them, they really boil down to like 5 or 6 elemental effects. So now the number is increased significantly. The actual number of special weapon powers you can add to your weapons is in area of, let's say, 20. So it really is something that adds to combat itself and to your weapons. And you're feeling that the weapon that you wield in your hand is the weapon that you create, and this is your weapon.
Sounds like it would be very hard to do, to tailor to make it feel like everyone owns the thing that they have in a game that so many people can play.
Yes.
We did it! All right, what happens at night?
At night.
I want to know, how crazy does it get at night?
I know, Chris. What would you like to say?
Well, I mean,
something
if you play Dying Light 1, I think you know the swarms of the infected suddenly start pouring out of the buildings. They get the free range.
No ja nie grałem, ja się przyznam, ja nie grałem w Dying Lighta 1.
Nawet blok cię nie uratuje, skurwysyny się będą skiwać.
To ja muszę w to zagrać, koniecznie. Przed dwójką must have. Oj.
Gdzieś się popsuł.
Czyżbyśmy znowu w Drelawie mieli lepszy internet niż w LA?
Nieźle.
Bo podejrzewam, że to raczej pod cały stream.
Conception that somehow night is more dangerous than the day in Dying Light 2, and I'm not actually sure that's the case because humans are.
That the day is for humans and the night is for the infected, and
Za chwilę wróci.
Sort of threats about them.
Exactly, that's the idea. That's the core rule of this world. That the day is for humans and the night is for the infected. And since there are so many of them on the streets during the night, then we have also looked at things like UV light mechanics. UV light was a quite important part of the first game, but in gameplay terms, it was mostly used in our multiplayer mode, Be the Zombie. But right now in Dying Light 2, we introduced this as well in the, let's say, in the single player game or in co-op game where you fight the environment, and you get things like UV flashlight that stop the infected from attacking you. But if you keep them in the cone of the UV light for long enough, they lose their stamina, they fall to the ground, so now they are open for an easy kill. We have UV flares, so basically if you get surrounded, if the zombies start.
Ja dlatego się Bartko z tobą, dlatego boję się z tobą grać.
area around you. So this helps you in a situation like this, but only for a few seconds. So this is your moment to escape. One thing you can also change in the city as you make choices, as you interact with different systems, is the fact that we have UV lights installed in different parts of the city, like lamp posts with UV. So you can increase the number of them, or change the placement of them by your choices.
No tylko widzisz, tylko teraz się będzie zmieniać, tak? Dynamicznie.
Your missions, the missions that you complete during the night, because now you did some things that give you more freedom, give you make those missions, night missions, slightly easier because there are a lot of UV lamps in the city. And it also is very cool visually, because when you enter some of the highest buildings and you look at the city and you see there's plenty of those UV lights around you, you feel like this is what I have achieved in this world, this is what I have achieved in this city. I made those things to happen. So this really is an empowering feeling.
And I feel like having those UV lights makes sense as the tech has evolved, because this is set quite a bit after the first game, right?
Yes.
And how was that decision made? Why is it? It's 15 years?
Well, I mean, there's a few things. Like, so 15 years gives, I think, enough narrative aesthetic time.
No, 50 lat to sporo.
Because like when you're dealing with like a recent zombie apocalypse, and I'm saying that like it's a common thing, 15 years feels like it's a long enough for new types of factions and civilizations to sort of cook and find new ways of expressing themselves, as well as letting a lot of ammo and guns die out, and you have to resort to more melee weapons. It makes more sense in that environment. The other thing that's really cool, and I don't want to speak for the artists at Techland, but it also allows you to sort of do to show how vegetation and life is returning to these cityscapes. So when you look over the landscape of the city, you'll actually see like forests and like fields actually on the rooftops of old buildings in the city, and seeing that mixed in with the architecture, it looks really beautiful.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
And one thing that Chris mentioned was the artists. And so first of all, hi to all our artists. If they see us, I hope they do. And the other thing is that we have made a very conscious artistic choice in this game. We have decided to give this game a style which we call the modern dark ages. And it also connects to the question about 15 years, because this time span allows this to develop. So what it is, it's like, because we say, okay, so after 15 years after apocalypse like this, the humanity, the civilization will go back to dark ages. But the scenography, all that's around you is basically modern. But it has been changed by those people so they can make a living, they can survive. And so what you get now is a shopping mall that, because of some additions like structures that the survivors have added to it, now it starts looking like a castle. You see a police station that looks like a fortress. You see a settlement of survivors that looks like basically like a village from medieval times, because these people, they don't have access to modern factories and everything. So you see weapons, hatchets, axes, as I said, so medieval weapons, but those weapons are made from plastic or gas pipes.
No to też może być gorąco, tak samo jak u nas. U nas jest tak gorąco, jak się wyjdzie z naszego pokoju, z tego pokoju, to jest zimno w domu jest zimno po prostu.
That you should feel the loss, the shame of all of those things gone to waste because of human decisions.
Sounds like a lot of creativity must have gone into building all of that out.
Oh yes, so if you could look at our art guide, it's basically a document that has 300 pages, so yes, a lot.
It's going to be a great art book.
Yeah, I was going to say, expensive art book. That's going to cost a lot in shipping.
That's true.
Back to the narrative, though, Chris. I know you can speak about this. What are we going to be doing story-wise in Dying Light 2?
Well, you come as a stranger to what we call the city.
Yes.
It doesn't actually have a specific name and a real-world location. It's more a generic, like where it's sort of more like a metaphor for civilization. I think what you compared it to is how Rome was referred to back,
Yes.
and it was always called the city, and that's kind of the feeling that we're doing at Dying Light 2. So you are a stranger to the city, and you are infected, and you have to sort of find, okay, well, how do I sort of keep myself alive while this disease is eating at me, and then also these different individuals that seem to be vying for power and have their own agendas. Where do I fit into that world, and how do I make sort of like a place where I can survive both, I guess, socially, and then also just physically in the environment with dealing with all the threats that are coming at you.
I know a big part of this is the wristbands that everyone
Yes,
Yeah,
has.
biomarker.
That's a biomarker.
Yes.
So that's like a bracelet that tells you how close you are to the point of no return for your infection. So when the lights start go red, you really want to find antizin, which is the drug that allows you to postpone the moment. Because if you don't, you basically screw it. You turn into a zombie.
So
To było wcześniej już jakby taki
Tak,
motyw?
tak,
Aha,
tak.
dobra, bo ja nie wiem.
Chyba nie było takiego banda, który...
Znaczy czujki, tak? Ale że grałeś coś, żeby się nie
Tak,
przemieniać.
to jest bardzo ważny w ogóle motyw w tej sensie.
Aiden is affected as well. He's in the city that probably, perhaps, is the last human settlement on planet Earth.
Yeah, with everyone being infected, that also sort of levels the playing field, and it also gives a lot of pressure to quests and situations in the game because everyone's trying to scrounge for medicine and stay alive just one more day. And having the infection be that widespread adds a lot of urgency to the narrative too, which is kind of cool.
It's also probably just an exciting threat to write for, in that any of your NPC friends could turn into zombies at any point in time.
Yes, so it's used in the quest as well. So basically the biomarker, this is a thing that is like you pass to enter human settlements. If there's a hub, if there's like a group of people living there, they will look if you have the biomarker and what's on it. Are you close to getting turned or not? And we also, of course, we use that as a narrative element as well.
So I guess even socially, people could see if you're closer to turning, then they might not want you in a certain place.
Exactly.
Ooh. Sounds like people can get real nasty with that.
I need to make a Black Mirror here, though.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was thinking. It's like, ooh, I don't like that society. We don't want that.
Yeah, that's that vibe, yeah.
Yeah, definitely exciting to play through, though. Another thing is this game's co-op. How does that work exactly?
So co-op is up to 4 people. And basically you can play
Do 4.
the game from start
Było
to
to
finish.
wcześniej?
Nie wydaje mi się.
But the interesting
Chyba
bit is
tak,
when
ale...
you play the game in co-op, you always understand in whose world you're playing in. So if I invite my friends over, they see my version of this world. So they see what kind of decisions I made and how that impacted the city. But then one of my friends invites me and the rest of the guys to his game, and suddenly we see, okay, so this could have gone totally different. So this could look like something completely different than what I have in my game. He can have different regions opened or destroyed, different people living in his version of the city.
Do 4 było, więc okej. To nie jest nowość.
Supports playing in co-op.
It's just like Animal Crossing, but really dark and full of zombies.
But a little bit more grim.
Well, you were saying that with co-op though, like so when I would like to go join your game, like but I actually get to keep the rewards that I get from that. I get XP.
Yes, exactly. So the XPs, the player progression stuff, the weapons, everything that you earn, you get to keep. But then you go back to your game with all of those things that you have earned, and then you can follow your story. So that's how you make the distinction.
How will like main story quests work when you're playing co-op and there's a cutscene? Say if I've already completed that in my game, I jump into someone else's game. How does that stuff look?
So as I said, you understand who is the host, so you always see what the host is seeing.
Okay.
And this happens anyway. Like this kind, of course, we understand this kind of slightly breaks the immersion, but this is what happens with co-op sessions anyway. You talk about Game of Thrones, you talk about the latest match, you talk about what happened with your friends, so you don't really follow the story that much. You don't focus on it that much. But yes, when you play in co-op, you follow the story of the host.
So if I just want to run around with my friends and get crazy in the open world, is there a ton of side content?
Yes, of course. So aside from the main story missions, there are side missions. Some of them are connected to the main story as well, and you never really know which one is the more important or less important. To be honest, we don't even look at this way because all of those are important to us. There are activities you can do. There are things basically in the open world where you can interact with factions. You can fight against the peacekeepers. You can help the peacekeepers. You can help the survivors. You can sit on the top of the building and start observing using your binoculars what is happening around. And there will be some bandits that try to muggle some poor guys. So you want to help him. On the other hand, you see some scavengers that try to loot some place, some kind of a dark zone. So maybe you help them. So there's plenty of the gameplay for you to interact with, even if you don't want to follow the story.
Are you expecting people to finish the whole game co-op, or are you expecting people to more jump between each other?
I think it's like this is the freedom we give to people. Like for me, but this is just personal opinion. I think the best way to experience the game is to play it first solo and like make those choices and feel the weight of them. And then after you finish that, you can invite your friends and just have a blast with it.
Is it something where you can just jump into wherever they are in the game?
Yes, but this is very seamless. So yes, of course you can do that.
I don't know. I'm excited about that. I want to see everyone else's Animal Crossing town. That's exactly what it is. What kind of plants you got?
Infected crossing. Yay.
So we've only got 3 minutes left. Is there anything else that you guys really want to tell everyone about here today? You've got 3 minutes. Go for it.
Yes, guys. Okay. Okay, so one thing that I always keep saying, and this is very important to us, is I would like to thank our amazing community. If you guys have played Dying Light 2, this is also for you. I would like to thank you very much, because what you guys give us is really the confidence that we are making the right thing, that we are making the right decisions as we develop the games. And we try to give that love back by supporting our community. Dying Light, the first one, is a game that is still being supported 4 years after the release, and we plan to do the same with Dying Light 2. So once again, guys, thank you very much. This really is important for us. So if I see you smiling, then it means yes, you support us. So thank you for that. Yeah.
No to Bartko fajnie mówisz, ale ja bym też, ja bym zrobił...
Może po prostu jedno playthrough zrobisz ze mną, drugie z Romanem, bo mi się nie widzi grać 2 razy w Dying Lighta tak pod rząd.
So what we reveal right now is only the co-op modes. So up to 4 people play the whole game with your friends, and that's all that we're saying.
They always
Sorry
say that.
for the...
Why is it always, we'll see? Damn it. But there was you guys released a sort of battle royale type.
Yes, but that's a different project.
Dobra, ja chciałem powiedzieć, jak ja widzę granie w tą grę. Najpierw zagrać solo, zrobić swoje decyzje, później zagrać u kogoś drugiego, w sensie tak każdy z nas, i później trzeci raz,
Kurwa,
żeby
chcesz
zobaczyć jak
jedną
najwięcej...
grę napierdać 3 razy pod rząd? To nie jest
Niekoniecznie pod rząd, ale... Znaczy, ale właśnie może o to chodzi, że to będzie można napierdalać pod rząd, bo będzie tak bardzo różne będą wybory i za każdym razem będzie można zrobić inną ścieżkę.
Ojej, nie mówię ci, najlepiej jak ja zagram pierwszy raz z tobą Bartek, potem Roman z tobą i tyle.
And do we know what we're getting in terms of like collector's editions? Or...
Not saying much right now, but there will be a huge info blowout soon, so please stay tuned.
O, dobra, czyli będzie kolejna kolekcjonerka do kupienia.
Nie.
Nie ma pieniędzy.
Anyone else before now? All right. Well, I really did my best. No, thank you guys so much for joining me, and thank you.
Problem jest, jestem głodna, nie mam jedzenia w domu. Daj mi jedzenie.
A w ogóle Laska jest świetna, świetnie przeprowadzony wywiad, naprawdę.
Bardzo ładnie, tak.
Bardzo ładnie i starała się wyciągnąć takie rzeczy od nich. Bardzo fajne pytania zadawała. Więcej paneli z tą Laską. Roman, jesteśmy na Steamie, świetnie. Nie obchodzi mnie to, mamy lepsze rzeczy. Denis, pogadamy, jak za rok będziemy na kinda Funny Games Show. Masz mi to załatwić. Masz mi załatwić, że będziemy na kinda Funny Games Show.
In my head. Yeah, 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 yeah.